Shamai Elite Dangerous Chums. The Python Mk2 is now available to purchase for credits rather than arcs. That's 67 million credits, but is it worth it and does it live up to the hype? I'll show you my PVE combat build and some combat to give you a taste. But first, the build. For the build, I did a mix of fully engineered and partially engineered parts. So lightweight alloy was my choice for this one. Heavy duty armour G4. Now I could have gone G5 and had a deep plating experimental, but I didn't have time to do that. But you could put a military grade or something like that, but it will give you more weight. So I've gone for the lower weight, higher manoeuvrability build for this. Power plant, again, I used an overcharged. I needed an experimental on that, didn't have time. Thrusters, this is important. The dirty drive with drag drives, G5, but you could get away with G3 or G4, no problem, because it is a highly manoeuvrable ship. FSD 5A SCO gives you just a little bit more range, but you don't even need to engineer it. This is a native SCO slit ship, so it flies really smoothly in SCO and will get you to your targets really rapidly. I'd always choose that one. Life support 4D. You don't need a 4A because basically I've not had a problem with the windscreen going, but I've had a problem with just being destroyed with this particular build. But if you went for a more armoured build, you could go for a 4A. Power distributor, again a G5. I did G3 and had no problems because the pacifiers that I was using don't take a lot of energy, a lot of draw from the distributor. You need an experimental on that as well. Sensors 5D. Again, you could use 5A, but I wanted less weight, so I went for D. Let's have a look at the shield. So it's a bi-weave, and it's modified for fast charge as you need with a bi-weave and reinforced shields. I went for G4 mainly because this is one I share with a different ship, and until I find the other fast charge, I'll continue to using this one and not engineer to G5. But I really wanted G5. Shield cell bank, yes, we need that only for when we make mistakes and the shield come down at the wrong time. You want to keep the shields up most of the time. Guardian hull reinforcement package. I wanted a 3D engineered one, but I'm quite happy I went for this. But just use a normal 3D if you don't have the Guardian. And if you went for a heavier build with the military grade, then I would use a 3D engineered one to give you a bit more armor and protection when the shields do go down. But this is not a whole tank. It's not very good at that. Guardian module reinforcement package. I use this because it's better. Just use the normal modular reinforcement package if not. And this 1D is probably overkill for PvE, but it's not overkill for PvP, that's for certain. Utilities, you want a kill warrant scanner, heatsink launcher. I just threw in these shield boosters, but you need engineered ones with some thermal resistance, etc. All your resistance is covered in those slots, and perhaps the E versions rather than the A's if you're going to do that. But that's for PvP rather than PvE. Most importantly, as I said, the Pacifier Frag Cannon is the best weapon for this ship, and this is the best ship for the Pacifier Frag Cannon because it fits them in perfectly in those 3 shots, and they all combine together nicely. Look at that wonderful, perfect build. But what have we done with them? Overcharged weapon on every single one, and this one is oversized to give you the max damage for that one. Incendiary rounds to blast through the shields for that one. And corrosive to eat away at the hull to kill them basically. And finally the drag munitions will slow them down, stop them from boosting away. That's quite an important one, but you could arguably replace it with incendiary, but I prefer stopping them from boosting. Now I birdied it up. I saw builds with just cannons in these slots here, but I went for long range thermal vent. That should be thermal vent too, but it isn't. G5, and the reason why that's useful in PvE versus the pirates is when the eagles are running away from you, you can blast them away with that long range weapon and kill them quite easily. So that is your build. Let's kick off some combat then with some stacked pirate massacres. Now this is only a chieftain and it's ranked at competent, so we're going to start with threat level 3s and 4s. Look at this, shields are down, a couple of volleys, well 3 volleys, and then we reload with 3 more and hit it, and 2 of those have killed it. So that's how easy it can be. Let's look again at another one. So this is a rank of a novice in a dropship. very easily dealt with, which is nice. Next we'll look at the Type 9 Heavy. These are really easy to take down anyway, but they do have quite a bit of armour, just to show you that you need a couple of reloads. And just taking the shields down a little bit with the beams as well. But you can use the beams as well as the frags, and you won't lose much distributor. And here's a second one. So we're going to do a whole sequence. So we're starting off with the Type 9s here, and then we're going to move on to the next targets. So these are giving us a decent amount of bounty money, but that's not why you do it. You're doing it just to add up the pirates, basically to swat them all. So I could even take on lower value ones, but here is an anaconda. So they're competent, so they're not that bad, but they're not brilliant, so they should be quite easy to deal with. Shields down already, and that's even at distance. So as you close in a little bit, it's starting to try and joust with us, but fortunately we're a lot more manoeuvrable, so we don't have any problems dealing with that. And another one down. We've also got all these small ships around as well, so we will want to deal with them at some point. And we're just targeting another anaconda here. So hitting with the long range beam. We're down to 1 kilometre, so we're just smashing it with some pacifiers there. Shields down to 24%, and I mean, it's so much fun. This I'm aiming for that orange reticle. So this is aiming ahead of the target. So as soon as it boosts, so we're stopping it from boosting with that drag munition a little bit. So again, it's pretty much finished now, down to 15%. Once we've reloaded and we can target, we'll have him finished. There we go, down. And another one done and dusted. Didn't quite nail the boost through the ship there. Bit of a bump up. Now hopefully we can find some smaller targets here. So there's an eagle. So I'll just show you the value of the long range beam lasers here with the thermal vent. We can hit them with the pacifiers as well, but it's a lot more difficult because they are jousting to the max. Some people in the comments of Reddit have said, oh, it's like an eagle in manoeuvrability. It really isn't. The eagle is far more manoeuvrable than the Python 2, but as you can tell, we can still blast it to smithereens. So those are the easy targets. This is a deadly Python, so we're starting to come in at threat level 5s and 6s. The Python is the easy variety, but for some reason I'm head to head with him. I should have got behind him before attacking. That is a obvious error, but still we'll deal with it. They're flying plasmas at us, trying to ram us, but we just avoided the ram. Just a bit of a scrape, not quite a head on. 50% shield here. So we're going to keep on trying to smash him with the pacifiers, watch out for the ramming, shields are down, and then we're going to come around. We're in the kind of jousting style. They've got they're blocking our lasers. Oh no, we're locked on again now. But these larger ships, they throw out the ECMs and all that jazz, and they're blocking our lock-on. So this is why it's quite useful to have a manual kind of pacifier, because you don't need to be able to lock on. You can always unlock the target and do it manually, but I don't like doing that. I just like to do it straightforward. Nearly done now. Pythons can be quite tricky, but as a slower ship, they should be easy enough to deal with, and we've got a room for error for making a few mistakes with these, which is not the case with the Fer De Lance, which is the main competitor for this vessel, and it's much more manoeuvrable, which is why we end up getting stuck in a jousting session here. However, we're going to manage our shields and our expectations, hopefully, and we're just going to keep on getting those pacifiers on target every time they come into view. Notice there's a small window of opportunity with the jousting, and he keeps getting his chaff on, so getting tricky to get our lasers on target. For some reason he stopped before turning at that point to make it easy to hit them. And we're just going to keep on smashing them and hopefully hit them more than they hit us. And notice how they're getting their plasmas off at us as well. Our shields are going down as their shields have gone down, so we need to hit the we need to hit the boost there. So we got the shield booster, which is coming online now. So we have a bit of heat gain, but it's not a problem with the heat because we don't have a lot of heat generated with this setup. We're going to keep on hitting them. Notice it only went up to 20%, so we need to keep an eye on that and hit the net. Which ideally we'll hit another booster now just to keep it topped up, but we don't do that. We just keep on jousting because that's what we're focused on. Very easy to get distracted in this, and our shields are going to go down at some point if we don't boost them. Down to 19% on the Fer De Lance now, so we're getting there. We just need to hit them a few more times to finish them off. 16%. Those lasers are quite useful for just niggling little bits and pieces off them, but we really want to be hitting home with the pacifiers because that's where the damage comes in. Shields are down, but we are going to finish them off before our whole ship gets destroyed. We've got very limited armour as well. It's paper thin armour with this build, but fortunately we've killed them off before they got anything on target. So that is the Fer De Lance. Not too bad. Now with this build, one thing to bear in mind, you'll get lots of materials dropped that you can't pick up because you don't have the limpets, but you can always pick them up manually if you want to target them with the scoop, the cargo scoop. Also, there's a mission reward there, pharmaceutical isolated. We get much more of those. So you saw 12 there. Good rewards and a good reason for getting back into Pirate Massacre. Now this final sequence has no sound because that failed, but it's a threat level 5 or 6 I think with a deadly opponent FDL. The end is actually very different than the previous. So I'll talk a little bit over the cost. The Python Mk2 is 67 million, much more expensive than its closest rivals. Take the Krait Mk2 at 45 million, though it is much less maneuverable. It does have a class 7 distributor, which makes it handle juicy weapons like the plasmas just much better. Although the Python Mk2 can handle some plasmas, they do need engineering for efficiency, and I honestly just didn't enjoy those compared to the pacifiers, which are just better and much more forgiving for anybody who's new to manual weapon targeting, for example. But also, I should say the Krait Mk2 has much better utility slots, making it a far more versatile, general purpose kind of vessel. But it is not as good at combat. Now we're getting up to the end to this sequence with the FDL, so if you've been watching, I've been jousting with it, and we've got the shields down, but also our shields are down just as we've killed it. Yes, brilliant, but its wingmates target us, and watch how paper thin that hull is as it just gets zapped completely. So that is why I think there's a threat level 6 is much more difficult than the 3s and 4s which you want to start out with this vessel. So going back to my summary, so as a combat ship you've got to look at the Fer De Lance as the best competitive for this particular vessel. Now the Fer De Lance is only 51 million, which is 16 million cheaper. It's got similar internals, a bit of a smaller shield, but it's a shield tank just like the Python Mk2, but it is more maneuverable. It has that seating position on the right hand side which some people don't like, but I think the Python Mk2 is not the FDL killer at all. FDL is still probably the PvP meta, but it's a close second place for the Python Mk2. However, with this build I found that killing pirates is much easier, and I think it's much better at PVE than the FDL, and that's where this ship truly shines, is worth the extra money. Doing the Pirate Massacre missions is much more fun in the Python 2, better than the it's pretty survivable as well, as long as you're not up against the really hardcore, but it's as survivable as the FDL and the Krait 2, perhaps more so than both those vessels. Not as much as the Corvette and the Anaconda, of course, but I think it's more fun, and it can take down the ships as quick, if not quicker, if you're a good pilot. So, did the Python Mk2 live up to the hype? At first I didn't think it did, but I've got to give it a little bit. I think it did live up to the hype, but you've got to take into account its strengths and weaknesses, like most ships. So I think you should buy it if you want a combat ship for PvE. Use this build, or give me your suggestions on where this build can be improved. I should say that if you are quite new to combat, then do use the gimbaled beams and gimbaled multi-cannons in the large slots to begin. Also, the pacifiers are a power play module unlocked with Zachary Hudson, but you could use engineered standard frags instead. And that is the Python Mk2. It's a good ship. Drop a like if this was useful, it helps the channel, but thank you very much for watching and have a most excellent day.